Hey, it's Book Reports, and in this video, I want to share my top 10 quotes from The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F by Mark Manson. And I want to share about sort of what those quotes sort of meant to me, as well as what I think it can mean to other people, especially people who are creating YouTube videos or doing anything sort of creative or are thinking about it, but they just haven't gotten started yet. So when I first heard about this book, I thought it was about just not caring about anything, that you would just have a carefree life, and that was the sort of theme of the book, was you just don't care about anything, and that's how you live your life. And I thought, that's kind of irresponsible. You should care about things. And in fact, the message in the book is quite the opposite. It's not saying to not care about anything, it's actually saying to focus down and care about certain things. In fact, the author says that really this book is about learning how to focus and prioritize your thoughts effectively, how to pick and choose what matters to you and what does not matter to you based on finely honed personal values. So with that, here is my top 10 quotes for this book. But because there were so many good quotes in this book, I want to give an honorable mention. Many people may be to blame for your unhappiness, but nobody is ever responsible for your unhappiness but you. This is because you always get to choose how you see things, how you react to things, how you value things. I wanted to mention this because although this isn't profound, I thought it was pretty powerful. And we've heard it before where it's like life is like 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you react to it. And so this idea in this book was not new, but I just thought it was a nice reminder, and so that's why I wanted to mention it on this list. Number 10. Something about recent technology seems to allow our insecurities to run amok like never before. The more freedom we're given to express ourselves, the more we want to be free of having to deal with anyone who may disagree with us or upset us. The more exposed we are to opposing viewpoints, the more we seem to get upset that those other viewpoints exist. It seems like there's a lot of angry people nowadays, and I don't know if there were always angry people and we just never heard about their anger, and that technology today is just making that more real, more widespread, or more people are just angry. But it feels like there's a lot of people that are angry online. You have Instagram and you have Twitter, and people leave comments and they let people know how they feel. And I like this quote because what it's saying is that that same freedom that allows us to express ourselves is also sort of what gets us more upset when we see other people's viewpoints that don't align with our own. It's what makes social media this double-edged sword that is so good to keep in contact with people and to let people know what you're doing, but at the same time you're exposed to everybody who's also doing those same things. And so what does that mean? It means that we expose ourselves to possibly getting more upset or offended by what other people may be thinking. Number 9. The problem is that the pervasiveness of technology and mass marketing is screwing up a lot of people's expectations for themselves. The inundation of the exceptional makes people feel worse about themselves, makes them feel that they need to be more extreme, more radical, and more self-assured to get noticed or even matter. Again, this is related to social media and how it seems like it's a war against everyone to get attention. You have to do something crazier. You have to, show off more of your life, and you have to show off your better life. You have to show off a better highlight reel, but it's challenging. And I can't imagine how it must feel for people who are growing up in this type of social environment. Because when I was younger, I didn't have any of that, and I was only exposed to social media in college where we had MySpace, and just emerging was Facebook. There was really no Twitter and no Snapchat and no Instagram. But for people who are growing up nowadays and they're thrust into this environment where it seems like they're instantly competing with their peers, and not just their peers at their school or in their community, but now it's a worldwide group that you're competing against, and it must be very, very challenging. It must be difficult to be put under all that pressure where you feel like you have to do something more. You have to always get all this attention when in fact it's tiresome. And the whole point of this quote, I think, is to point out that it's the exceptional and how much we sort of put on this pedestal exceptional people, and we think that we have to be like that, and if our life is not like that, then we feel worse about ourselves. And when you talk about it like that, it seems very obvious, but it's very difficult to do in practice, especially if you're constantly bombarded by those images. Number 8. Being able to look at and evaluate different values without necessarily adopting them is perhaps the central skill required in changing one's own life in a meaningful way. This sort of ties in with the whole social media thing, where it seems like a lot of people are just yelling at each other. They're just sort of shooting their whatever they're thinking out there, and they just expect people to sort of react, and they keep fighting back and forth. And what I like about this quote is that it says that really, if you want to change your life, you have to be able to be empathetic towards others, to understand their position. You don't have to adopt it, but just understanding it and to try to just put yourself in their position. And then it's okay to come back to your position, but hopefully through that experience of putting yourself into their position, your position moves a little bit closer to them. You don't have to fully adopt it, but just to kind of see what they see, and I think more importantly, to feel what it is that they feel. I think it's this great way to change our life. Number 7. I wanted the reward and not the struggle. I wanted the result and not the process. I was in love with not the fight, but only the victory. And life doesn't work that way. So this is the first series of quotes in this book that really got me thinking about YouTube, and it got me thinking about creating videos. And it's so difficult if you make videos, if you have a channel where you're constantly thinking like, man, I just want more views, I want more subscribers, and I want to get to that place where I have 1 million subscribers or 100,000 or whatever that golden number is for you at that time. And it's hard because you make videos and maybe nobody watches them. But one of the things that I realized is that when you think that way, you're more in love, you're more attracted to that end result. And you're not so much attracted to the process it takes to get there, and that leads to quitting, that leads to burnout, that leads to, well, I'll try this for a month or two and it didn't work out. I didn't have tons of people following me, I didn't get a lot of views, so I'm done. And that's sad. And so for me, I'm trying to remember that, because sometimes it is discouraging on YouTube. And I'm trying to remember that I need to love the process of making videos, of editing, of reading books, of talking about them. That's the most important thing. And if nobody watches the videos, that's okay. That I still have to be okay with that. And I have to be more in love with the process than with the result. And for a lot of people, the result is fame, popularity, and ultimately money. Number 6. True happiness occurs only when you find the problems you enjoy having and enjoy solving. This goes back to an earlier video I made about happiness and being rich, and what is it? I guess sort of, where do you find yourself in that spectrum? And to me, if you want to find true happiness, again, according to what this book points out, it's you got to find a problem that's worth devoting your time to, worth devoting your life to, and you pursue that problem and you try to solve that problem, and you may never solve it, but you get close, and that drive will bring you joy, and that drive will bring you happiness, and it'll give you that purpose in life. It's not about money and things and all these temporary things. It's about pursuing and trying to get better. It's trying to pursue something that is impersuable. You can never grasp it, but it's that process of trying to grasp it that I think people will find the most happiness out of. Of course, that requires a person to think up a goal like that, and that's hard to do because we like to have goals that are achievable because they make us feel good. Like in games, right? You want to level up, you want to reach level 250, but imagine if a game had no level or it had a reset of levels, then you wouldn't really care about the leveling system. You just want to get better, you just want to play the game, you just want to enjoy the game and improve over time. And I think sort of similar to that in life, if we have those goals that we can never quite achieve, but we can strive to get better and strive towards them, I think that'll give us the most happiness. Number 5. We cannot learn anything without first not knowing something. The more we admit we do not know, the more opportunities we gain to learn. This one is particularly hard for me, to admit that I don't know stuff. But if you think about it and you look at the quote and you read it maybe a few times, you realize that it's saying that you're not dumb. It's just, you have to realize that you don't know stuff. And that's actually a good first step, because then that gives you the opportunity to learn. Why would you want to learn something that you already know? So by admitting that you don't know it, then it's an opportunity to learn, and that should be something to be a positive of. It takes a lot of humility to admit that you don't know something, and that's something that for me is difficult at times, where I feel like I already know it. I don't need to learn that. I'm all good. I'm the best. I'm an expert. But in fact, that is a very dangerous position to be in. When you think you don't have to learn anything, then you don't change, you don't grow. And the problem with that is, while that may be okay for a certain amount of time, the world is constantly changing, the environment is constantly changing, and probably that area that you think you know and that you're all good at, it's gonna change. And if you don't change and you stay stuck in your ways, you're gonna be left behind, because everyone else is gonna be learning, everyone else is gonna be striving, everyone else is gonna be trying to get better, and you're gonna be stuck. Number 4. Improvement at anything is based on thousands of tiny failures, and the magnitude of your success is based on how many times you failed at something. If someone is better than you at something, then it's likely because she has failed at it more than you have. If someone is worse than you, it's likely because he hasn't been through all of the painful learning experiences you have. This one was a little hard to swallow, that I don't know if it's quite failures equals people are better, because if you're not improving, you're not going to get better. If you just keep failing and making the same mistakes over and over again, you're going to be left behind. You're not really going to improve. But I understand the sentiment of this quote in saying that you've got to try. And when it comes to creating videos, sometimes you just need that kick to just say, you know what, you just got to try. You got to make 100 bad videos to get to that position at the 101st or 150th or 500th video for it to be like dynamite, for it to be really, really good. You have to make those first 100 that are kind of bad. And the thing is, people are afraid to try, and including myself. People are afraid to go through that 100 failures to put something out there that is junk, and not realizing that that's the process of getting good, is by putting out something that is junk. And that's something that I had to realize in my video making, in my photography, that yeah, I'm gonna have to make a lot of junk things before I make good things. But that's okay, because that's sort of what makes it good. I think it's why a lot of older people are successful, in the sense that they have more wisdom, because they've made a lot of mistakes. They've made the same mistakes over and over again. And not to say that just because you're old, you're automatically wise, but with age and experience, I can definitely see where, yeah, you had a lot of failures. You made a lot of mistakes. And so you learn from that, and you're able to give that wisdom out to other people. Now it's our job as younger people to accept it, and we could choose not to. We could choose to refuse it, but really it's kind of nice to have people who have failed their whole life, struggled their whole life, and now they reach the point where maybe they're not there anymore. And they can kind of give you shortcuts. They can kind of give you a playbook on what to do and what not to do. And a lot of that wisdom is found in books. Number 3. When we learn something new, we don't go from wrong to right. Rather, we go from wrong to slightly less wrong. I thought this was a great quote, because again, in applying it to YouTube videos or creating anything, I guess, is like when you learn something, when you create something, it's not that you just make one video, you make one thing, and then you automatically become this amazing videographer, photographer, writer, whatever it is. It's like when you learn something new, it's not that you've completely understood it and now you are complete. Now you know everything. It's more like you were wrong before and now you're getting a little bit closer to being right. And then if you keep doing that more and more and more, eventually that little meter is gonna turn to the right direction, and you actually might one day be right. And if you can keep going, you're gonna continue to be right. And that again is more about the process. You have to be okay with being wrong, and you have to be okay with learning to lessen that wrong. Not to be good, but to lessen that wrong and make it more right. And that's one of the things that, again, I'm trying with my videos. I'm making it not so it's perfect, but that so it's less wrong and getting a little bit better, hopefully. Number 2, we can be truly successful only at something we're willing to fail at. If we're unwilling to fail, then we're unwilling to succeed. It's a pretty good mantra that you kind of have to risk, to be successful. You kind of have to risk something of yourself. Again, tying it to YouTube, if you want to have a channel that has a lot of people watching or subscribers, you kind of have to risk just going for it. There are some people who maybe they had it easier. Maybe they knew someone and they got exposure and that's how they got popular. But for the most part, I think a lot of people, and not just videos, but in life in general, you got to just kind of try and do it. And over time, people finally will find you. Or maybe things will change and eventually an audience will find you. But you just got to keep going. You have to be willing to, again, not worry so much about being perfect, but just creating stuff, just doing it so that 2 years from now, you'll be good. The audience will be ready for you. If you had that audience now, maybe they wouldn't like you. Maybe your videos wouldn't be that good. Maybe what you're saying isn't that great. But then 2 years from now, if you keep it up, who knows? Maybe then you'll be ready and that audience will be ready and they'll love it and you will be where you thought you should have been back then but weren't ready for. But in that future, you are. So for me, I have to remind myself that it's okay to risk it and fail if it's something that I want to succeed at. If I don't want to succeed at it, then I don't have to risk anything. But it's worth risking if I want to succeed, and I have to constantly remind myself that, even through the failures. And number 1, the more something threatens to change how you view yourself, how successful or unsuccessful you believe yourself to be, how well you see yourself living up to your values, the more you will avoid ever getting around to doing it. This is a really confusing quote. This was something that I had to reread multiple times, and in fact, when I put it on the list, it didn't really rank that high. But when I ranked it amongst all the other quotes, to me, this is the one that offended me the most. It hurt me the most because it hit something inside of me, like hit a nerve inside of me that basically said, the reason why you're not doing certain things in your life isn't necessarily you're lazy. It's a lot of it is you're afraid. You're afraid that if you actually had to try, you might see that you're not so good. And again, this whole idea of it's okay to not be good is in this book, but really, if you're not willing to confront how good or bad you actually are, you're never gonna do it. And I think that stops a lot of people from doing anything, is this fear of, I talk a good game, but if I actually have to risk something, if I actually have to put myself out there and try, it's not gonna be good. Or maybe I've tried to do it and nobody liked it, or maybe I tried to do it and I didn't like it, and now I don't want to do it anymore. And you can just fantasize about it in your mind, but that's all it's gonna be. It's just a thought. I see this a lot with people who want to write a book or they want to start a new business, and they talk about it a lot, but they never get around to actually doing it. And again, I don't think it's necessary that they're not capable of doing it, because to write a book, you just start. You just type. To create a business, you have an idea and you create a business plan. It's pretty simple. But I think what really stops people is this idea of they have to confront themselves. They have to confront how successful, or most of the time unsuccessful, they actually are. Maybe they're not as good as they thought that they were, and then they hit a wall and then they don't do it. I just wonder how many great ideas, how many great businesses, how many great books will never exist, will never be written, because people talked about doing it but never actually did it. And again, it's procrastination, but again, I think it's procrastination out of fear and not ability. It's just fear of, again, having to confront your own limitations, which is difficult. And I think that's a thing that all creators have to eventually confront. All people have to confront. And if you don't confront that, then you don't do anything. So when I read books like this, it's not meant to overhaul the way that I think and just change my life, and all of a sudden it's just, oh, I get life now. No, I don't think it works that way. I think it's pulling these small, subtle little moments in the book, and you think about them and you sort of see how they apply to your life. So thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Bye.